Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Last Wrestling Podcast. Because if I have a wrestling podcast, I have the option to hurt myself again. This is AEW Fight for the Fallen. I've already covered the buy-in show on the previous video on this channel. Please check that out. Like, share, subscribe, etc. We're going to jump straight into the action with a trios match. It's MJF, the egotistical rich bastard, working alongside Sammy Guevara, who likes pandas and is therefore evil, and the chairman, Sean Spears. Yes, they're going with that. I dubbed this trio Villains by Default, because they are facing guys that really aren't particularly babyface. Darby Allin, the crazy kid who likes to hurt himself, Jimmy Havoc, the crazy guy who likes to hurt other people, and Joey Janela, who's just Joey Janela. I dub this trio the Hardcore Idiots. I really don't think there's a good answer to who wins this. Oh well, here we go. First match of the show, Bryce Remsburg has the call. A victory for Team Villain by Default, as Sean Spears hits a Death Valley driver and pins somebody I don't exactly remember, even though I just watched the silly thing, and picks up the win. This was not a good trios match. The best thing about a trios match is you've got so many elements that there's so many possible combinations that you can have really an infinite number of potential matches here. Unfortunately, that is not what happened here. This was 6 single wrestlers having 5 or 6 different singles matches and calling it a trios match. That doesn't work. This is something that I think AEW will get over once they finally have television, because they need to establish their characters, and that's what this was. It was a character-establishing match for pretty much everybody in the bout, especially the heels, because they need to develop their heels. And MJF looked fine, Sean Spears looked like Sean Spears, and Sammy Guevara got paid, presumably. Okay, it seriously got to the point that I was having trouble keeping up with who was on what team, who was fighting who, and even with Bryce Remsburg as the referee, I was having trouble keeping track of who was supposed to be legal. So this was a shoddily put together match. This could have been 3 matches on an episode of AEW television, and it would have worked a whole lot better. We then get a look at Private Party, a tag team from the only good thing on the pre-show for Fyter Fest. And I like that they did this as part of the traditional look at all the famous / important people in the crowd. We had a couple of American football players. We had the father of the guy running the funding the company. We had a couple of lawyers that apparently paid for a lot of advertising on the show. And we have Private Party, who then kick out some guy who was standing next to them. So, okay, cool. Up next, we have got a women's match, and it's going to be Brandy Rhodes. I'm not sure how she gets to use that name and her husband doesn't, but okay. Facing off against Ali, or Alia, or something like that. Ali, who stunk up the joint in the pre-show of the previous episode. So, okay, we get an introductory video talking about how Brandy is feeling really self-conscious about her skills as a wrestler, and she's taking this match to sort of prove to herself that she can still go. Okay, cool. Let's see if that's what happens. Well, before the match even gets started, Awesome Kong makes her appearance. Complete surprise to Ali, but apparently not to Brandy Rhodes. This is apparently a Minion or Diesel-like situation. Kong interferes on Brandy's behalf, most significantly in this shot, where Kong is distracting the referee while Brandy is tapping out to a Dragon Sleeper. This allows for a quick pinning combination after a spear, and victory for the bad guys. And this is the most anti-AEW thing AEW has done so far. AEW has proudly proclaimed themselves to be everything WWE is not. And yet we have right here a heel authority figure with wrestling minions. Now, granted, Brandy is 100 times the professional athlete that Shane McMahon is, but this is still Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre. It's the exact same story. You've got the person who is in an authority position because of who they're related to, in this case, who they're married to, and they're heavy. And I don't know why they're doing this. If they want to keep the promotion babyface, which if they're smart, they do, then having, one of the top leaders of the promotion, apparently the person in charge of the women's division, as a heel authority figure is not a good way to do it. But we'll wait to see where they're going to go with this. They haven't built up a lot of credibility, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt short term here. And of course, after the match, because heels gotta be heels, Brandy Rhodes is basically taking Alia, or I keep saying Alia, Ali, and throwing her into Awesome Kong, set up for the Implant Buster, when all of a sudden the music hits, and who is it? Aja freaking Kong! Okay, this is a reignition of the Kong versus Kong feud from Japan about 10 years ago now. And I'm kind of curious to see what happens in this women's hoss fight. These two do get in each other's face. Brandy basically talks Kong down and says, wait for it. Wait until the right opportunity, etc., etc. Nothing wrong with that. We have... Now, whether or not this match is going to take place at All Out or on television or what, I don't know. But I do like that they are using matches to set up future matches. They are promoting things ahead of time. Again, something WWE is not very good at. So all in all, good progress for the women's division. Unfortunately, the main match itself kind of got lost in the shuffle. Up next, a match that I actually thought was going to be on the buy-in. It's our 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon tag team match. That's right. The winner of this match gets to wrestle for the opportunity to have a first-round bye in a tag team tournament to win the tag team titles. That's still way too freaking complicated. The best friends have already qualified for the qualifier for the bye to the... whatever. And now we've got some teams that I've been looking forward to seeing. I wish it was in 2-on-2, because these 3-way matches are way too complicated. First up is the Dark Order, and it's put up or shut up time for the former Super Smash Brothers. And they are accompanied to the ring by, I think we now have finally a name for these things, the Creepers. The minions, the Heartless, they are the Creepers, apparently. These guys were a great tag team back in the day, but we are a long way away from Delirious saying that Princess Peach is a tramp. No, seriously, that's a thing. Google it. Up next, we have Angelico and Jack Evans, formerly of the Worldwide Underground in Lucha Underground. And they're going to be the high-flying flippy guys, and frankly, the team I'm the least interested in seeing in this match. Last up, we have the team that I'm most looking forward to here, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, formerly known as Vivara in Lucha Underground. And this is the team. I love a good big man, little man tag team. I love a good odd couple tag team, and these guys are about as odd as it gets. They appear to be accompanied to the ring by Marco Stunt, who apparently his gimmick is Mr. Fun Size. I don't know how old he actually is, but he looks to be about 7.5. In other words, I think Nicholas is back for someone to get these hands. I've heard about this guy mostly from Jim Cornette complaining about him, but you know what? Fun little mascot character. I don't have a problem with that. So, at All Out, it will be the Dark Order versus the Best Friends. And I just realized they completely gave this match away. They gave this match away when the Dark Order did their little vignette saying how they'd chosen the Best Friends as their first conquest. Oh man, arg! As for the tag team match itself, it was okay. There was a lot of really good action. I loved everything I saw from Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Marco Stunt, I still don't get, but I reserve judgment until I see him in an actual match. But The problem with these kind of one fall, specifically one fall multi-team matches, is that so many things that could be established as finishers wind up either getting kicked out of or broken up. So, problem there. But in the end, it is the Dark Order with fatality. Sorry, I gotta try to do the Mortal Kombat voice. Fatality! And the victory. Up next, we have hopefully our squash match of the evening as Kip Sabian, whose character is he's British, faces off against number one contender for the world's title, Hangman Adam Page. Yeah, I really hope this is a 30-second squash, considering we're not even a third of the way through this show. 19 minutes and 3 seconds out of a 20-minute time limit. This did not need to happen. Especially since, again, the match didn't matter. The only thing that actually mattered was, after the match, one of the creepers of the Dark Order showed up, conspicuous by the fact he was wearing a shirt, and, oh, gee, who could this possibly be? Gasp! Shock! Oh my goodness gracious me! It is Chris Jericho under the mask. I am truly surprised at this unexpected turn of events. Anyway, up next we have a tag team match featuring two-thirds of SoCal Uncensored, who do their sort of Pavlovian, this is the worst town I've ever been to promo, while being profusely sweaty. I'm talking Shane McMahon levels of sweatiness from these guys. That was kind of disturbing to watch. And their opponents, a pair of movie-exclusive Kamen Riders. No, this is, of course, the Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix, presumably in the gold, and Pentagon Dark, or Pentagon Jr., or Penta L0M, or whatever, in the black. A win for the Lucha Brothers, and this was an extremely good tag team match. And frankly, it was the match you would expect out of the four people in the ring. And yes, I mean four, because Christopher Daniels was ejected by the referee fairly early on. Really just good back and forth action. I do recommend this match. However, as is unfortunately becoming standard in AEW, it's the aftermatch that matters more than the actual match itself. And this is a rare instance. Usually when you see the attack after the match, even if it's the winner attacking the loser, it's usually the heel attacking the babyface, kind of like with Awesome Kong and Brandy Rhodes earlier in the show. This time, it's the babyfaces attacking the guys who are basically the other babyfaces. This is, I would say, really bad storytelling, because it shows that the Lucha Brothers are willing to do this, are willing to attack people who haven't done anything to them. Now, that's exactly what I would expect of Pentagon Dark from Lucha Underground. It's not what I would expect from Phoenix. So either they're either they're changing the characters, or they're changing the character alignments here, and that needs to be a little more explicitly stated. After the attack, the Lucha Brothers climb the ladder, and I will say I do like Pentagon doing a promo, quote-unquote, of taking the microphone and just going, sort of clapping on the microphone to get the fans to chant, Cielo Miedo. They get up to the top of the ladder, give a promo mostly in Spanish, a little bit of couple keywords of English, essentially challenging the Young Bucks to a ladder match for both the title of Best Tag Team in the World and for the AAA Tag Team titles currently held by the Lucha Brothers that they won off of the Young Bucks. They want to have a rematch with a ladder stipulation at All Out, and presumably that will be accepted. So we do have some storyline progression. Again, very good pattern of setting up a match after each match. That without television, that's something you need to do. Now, that's something they're not going to be able to do, or they're not going to want to do after they actually get TV. Because you want your pay-per-views to be the conclusion of a storyline, and your television starts the next storyline. Hopefully, they can fall into that pattern as they get closer, or as they get established on cable TV. Up next is the semi-final match of the evening, and it is Shima going against Kenny Omega. And I want to talk about Shima for a second. When I first started following wrestling here in Japan, I didn't start with New Japan. I started with Dragon Gate because they had the colorful characters and the easy to understand storylines that somebody like me, who didn't speak a whole lot of Japanese at the time, really needed. And Shima was the ace of the company. Shima was the number one top star babyface, John Cena only he could wrestle type of character. I don't mean that John Cena can't wrestle, I just mean that he doesn't. But Shima was a major star, at least in my mind, when I was a nascent, neophyte Japanese wrestling fan. So seeing him get finally this big opportunity in America as part of OWE, as part of Dragon Gate, sort of, kind of, and not really, I'm really happy to see him in this position. As for Kenny Omega, I almost called him the Cleaner, but I don't know if he's using that nickname anymore. His story going into this match is that he's been distracted by Jon Moxley the last couple of shows. And the question is, will he be able to focus on defeating Shima? Because if he doesn't, he won't. And right now, he needs a win. Kenny Omega wins the best match of the night so far by a mile. This was fantastic. Lots of hard-hitting offense, some really intriguing and creative spots involving the ring apron, involving a Meteora off of the stage through Kenny Omega's soul. Lots of interesting counters, a good story told in the contrast of styles. The fact that these two have had long legendary careers in Japan, but have never wrestled each other. And that Shima, despite being Japanese and training the Chinese contingent, Shima is a luchador. He trained under Jorge Sky de Rivera. He trained in Mexico. He is not necessarily a strong style practitioner, but that's what we got. We got a hard-hitting strong style match. But the idea was that Kenny, who has a lot of experience against traditional Japanese wrestling, not so much of a luchador. So that was good. Shima got the majority of the offense here. Match went about 20 minutes, a little over 20 minutes, and just managed to finally hit the one-winged angel at the end, and that's what I like, a finish that was protected. He tried to hit the one-winged angel a couple of times in the match, never did, which means it was never kicked out of. So I like that that's being protected. Unfortunately, a lot of Shima's offense was not. Multiple Meteoras kicked out of. The Schwein on the ring apron, the Schwein on the steel superstructure of the ring, that wasn't a finish. But yeah, good match for Kenny Omega. He gets his first singles win in AEW. And like I said, match of the night thus far. Coming up next, because we haven't seen enough of him already, Chris Jericho is back in the house, having shed his creeper persona. And now he's pretending he's a member of LIJ, because his video wall basically said, "I am evil." So I think, wait a minute, did they sign evil to AEW? Wait a minute. What's going on? Oh, no, it's just Jericho. Never mind. Chris Jericho cuts a traditionally and characteristically amazing promo where he manages to get the crowd to turn against him instantly. He's still doing this whole this entitlement thing where AEW owes him a thank you for its existence. And the second the fans start to chant, "Thank you, Chris, or something like that, he immediately says, "Shut up, I don't want it from you. A thank you from you means absolutely nothing here on Jackoffville." And I love that. I thought that was fun. I mean, it's cheap local heat, to be fair, but it's immediately diffusing an obvious problem with this character that the fans are going to want to chant "Thank you, Chris." He's not being delusional. He's legitimately the biggest mainstream star, until Jon Moxley, and even then, frankly, it's debatable, that AEW has. So, great job from Jericho. He goes on a long screed about how he has to beat Hangman Page. He already has the blood of the Hangman upon his hands, etc., etc. until Paige comes out, beats up Jericho for a little bit. There's a big pull-apart brawl with all the referees and some of the undercard talent, and that's about it. So, fairly standard stuff, but very well executed. Coming up next, it is your main event of the evening, scheduled for one fall, one submission, or a knockout to decide. Okay, sorry. The Young Bucks versus the Rhodes Brothers. And again, everybody but Cody gets to directly call himself Rhodes. I don't get quite how that works. We get a great promo package. We get a great video package summarizing what happened at Double or Nothing. The best match that AEW has put forth so far between Cody and Dustin. And we get a little bit of a antagonism from the Young Bucks, who apparently were making fun of the bloody hug of the Rhodes Brothers. And there was this wonderful moment of, I think, strategic censorship, because Dustin mentions to Cody when they're talking about how they know the Young Bucks very well. The Young Bucks obviously don't know them. Dustin says to Cody, "We were the first team to beat the beep." And there's enough of an S sound at the beginning there that it sounds like he was saying we were the first team to beat the Shield. And I believe they were. Back when Cody was Stardust, they did have at least one victory over the Shield that I remember. And Cody points out, yeah, they haven't been watching us, but we've been watching the Bola Six-Mans. We've been watching the Ladder Wars. We've been watching them and the Motor City Machine Guns. So they tell that story very, very well. Excellent hype package. I was already looking forward to this match. I'm looking forward to it even more now. So definitely a win here. So main event time. The Bucks versus the Rhodes. Can't wait to see this, honestly. That was a very good match, at least what I could see of it. Something that's been a problem all night, at least on the feed that I was watching, was the fact that the feed would keep skipping back about 10 seconds every so often, and I'd have to skip forward 10 to 20 seconds to sort of catch up with where I was. This was the match where it became interminable. I just couldn't deal with it, because I wound up, I think, skipping about 10 to 20% of the match, because I was trying to catch up with where the video had left me off, and I think I missed a few bits. Overall, this was exactly what you would expect out of these teams. The Young Bucks, very athletic, high-flying. Cody, his standard, technically proficient, psychologically proficient, all-rounder, jack-of-all-trades, master of none. And Dustin, the wily veteran, who is smart enough not to be in the ring as much as he probably would have been 10, 15 years ago. In the end, as you can see from this still shot of a Meltzer driver, the Young Bucks pick up the victory over Cody. And since I don't think the Rhodes Brotherhood is going to be a permanent tag team going forward, this is probably the best decision with the Bucks, especially since they're going into a title match in a ladder match against the Lucha Brothers at All Out. So, a decent match. Didn't quite live up to the legendary dream match stipulation that or the advertisement, but it was good. It was exactly what you would expect out of these four individuals, which has kind of been the theme of the show, really. After the match, the Bucks tried to cut a promo talking about how, yeah, we've been making fun of you guys for a couple of weeks, but it was all in the spirit of competition. It was just to gain a psychological advantage. We really do respect you, blah, blah, blah. Fortunately, the music cuts them off, and they make a joke of, oh, we must be short on time. Don't admit to that! That's been a problem. That was a problem back at All In, where your match, by the way, got cut down to like 5 minutes out of a good 20 because you ran out of time. This is not a problem you're allowed to have in 2019. I'm sorry. Now, it's possible that this was a deliberate decision just to get to the end of the show, get to the feel-good moment, and then get out of there. Or it could be, yeah, they're legitimately short on time. I don't know. As much as my file is skipped back here, much of my video is skipped back here. I have no idea how long this show actually was. So I've got on my video counter that they've got 5 minutes and 24 seconds remaining. But I don't know what's going on. The aforementioned music brings out a bunch of baby faces, including Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, Kenny Omega, and the father of the guy paying for this whole show, Shad Khan, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're here to present a large novelty check to the anti-gun violence charity that this whole show has been about raising money for. And according to the novelty check, it is going to be 150,000. They actually said it was over that, but I guess they decided to put the round number on there. Nothing wrong with that. And this is for the Victim Assistance Advisory Council. This is apparently a city-based organization, city government-based organization that vets the proper way that this is going to be distributed. So this is a apparently legitimate donation from All Elite Wrestling. But after the check is presented, they do a couple little extracurricular activities. Cody Rhodes gets on the microphone, and I'm just going to call him Cody Rhodes, I don't care. Gets on the microphone and basically says, okay, I don't know if this is going to be on, I don't know if we're still on the air. They were. You can't counter program AEW. You can counter program me. Maybe you can counter program the Bucks. Maybe you can counter program Jabali. But you cannot counter program what we are doing. And you cannot counter program this revolution of professional wrestling. Now, that is obviously a shot both basically at WWE, at Evolve specifically, that was going on at the same time as this show. That's also a counter program to, or a shot at NXT UK doing an NXT UK takeover. I believe the same night as All Out, WWE taking a few pot shots here, and Cody saying, "Yeah, you can't counter program against this." He then says, "I'd love to be able to sign off tonight, but I don't have a signature line, so Kenny Omega, everybody." Now, of course, Kenny Omega's final thing is usually goodbye and good night, bang, and he admits, yeah, that's a little inappropriate considering we're raising money for victims of gun violence. So tonight it's going to be goodbye and good night, boing, because nobody ever got in trouble for bouncing around. I'm guessing that was a joke, and I didn't get it. So he signs off in his, oh, he's so much better talking to a Japanese audience kind of way, and that's the end of the show. We do hear good old JR, Jim Ross, on the last, 10 seconds of the broadcast. Are we clear? Are we clear? No, JR, you were not. So, was this show good? Yes. Was this show great? No. Was this show leaps and bounds better than Fyter Fest? Hell yes. They kept the hardcore bullshit to an absolute minimum. They, every single match, well, every single segment mattered. I can't say every single match mattered because there were several matches, like I mentioned earlier, that were only there to set up something that came later. And again, this is a TV show, so essentially. It was a free stream, so I get that. I'm fine with this being a little more of a televised product, but you need to try to keep the focus on the wrestling. And the wrestling, I think I've said it 3 or 4 times tonight, the wrestling was exactly what you would expect given the 4 participants involved. Nobody took it to another level, but by the same token, nobody slacked off because it was a charity show, and I'm guessing few, if any, of the wrestlers were actually getting paid. This is such a mediocre show. I don't mean that bad. I don't think it's a bad thing. Mediocre in this case, it was an average show. It was average for what AEW is capable of doing. It was a hell of a lot better than the shit show that was Fyter Fest. They seem willing to learn, but they still had technical issues. They still had massive problems with the stream, whether that's on AEW side or on the host side or whatever, I don't know. There were audio problems throughout the evening. We were hearing occasionally audio feeds we weren't supposed to hear. We were not hearing feeds we were supposed to hear. JR didn't even hear the bell in at least one match and had to ask, wait a minute, has this match actually started? And assuming the Bucks weren't just making a joke, is it possible we had a timing issue? I don't know, but yeah, because I have no idea how long the show was supposed to run. I wound up looking at a 4-hour show because the stupid file kept running back on me. This had a lot of the same problems that AEW should be correcting, but also they corrected a lot of the problems they've been having. So I'm going to give this a preliminary grade of a C. However, because it was a charity show, and because it was a charity that I very much believe in myself, and that I realize they're taking a risk, they're taking a political risk by working with this charity, by working against gun violence. Shockingly enough, that is politically dangerous in the United States, because we do have an homosexuality problem. I'm upgrading them. They get a 1-grade upgrade, so this is a B show. Appropriate enough for a B show. And with that, this video is already a lot longer than I intended it to be. I apologize. Thank you for watching, if indeed you still are. I bid you adieu, goodbye, and good night. Boing. No, that still doesn't work.